Many have been asking me to create a condition Vindicator build, and for a while I said that it wasn't really possible. But the more and more I thought about it, the more of a reality it became. So here is the Celestial Vindicator. It uses the Vassals of the Empire dodge to gain tons of boons, and you just sustain very well with pretty much permanent resistance, permanent vigor, and the more vigor you have, the more dodges and therefore boons you have. You have really good uptime on protection and might, fury, and you also have a lot of regeneration. So yeah, the build has a lot of boon uptime, and it also makes use of the chill. So in the corruption trait line, you have Abyssal Chill, which gives torment whenever you chill an enemy. And you're going to be chilling on pretty much every weapon. You've got a chill there. You've got chill on your dodge. And every time you chill, yeah, you're giving more damage. So you really debilitate your enemies because chill is one of these strong, I would say it's probably the strongest condition in the game. It reduces their speed by 66% and it increases their cooldowns. So it really locks targets down and allows you to stick to them and pressure them. So let's just get into the build. I take these Celestial stats, which is just nice for a hybrid build that can also support allies and survive by itself. And this build, I've kind of theory crafted it to make use of everything. So the Ruin of the Fireworks is because the invocation trait line makes you choose between two competing traits. You've got Rapid Flow for swiftness, or you've got Spirit Boon for basically vigor. And I want the permanent vigor uptime because you don't have enough vigor uptime just by dodging from Song of Arboreum. So you really need a secondary vigor source. And you can't really go Spirit Boon because then if you want swiftness, you have to go a rune that gives you swiftness, and you still don't get enough swiftness then. And if you go for Rapid Flow, then you don't have enough vigor. So I just go for Fireworks, which gives you your movement speed and your vigor in one, and that frees up your decision to just go for more might here. This is a hybrid build, but Greatsword is mostly a power weapon, so I use it as Berserkers. So it is the only piece of Berserker's gear. Everything else is Celestial. But you've also got some chill on the Greatsword as well, but it's kind of minor on the auto attack and the 3 skill. So I use Berserker there with energy cleansing. Energy sigils are really important because you want more dodges. And on the Mace Axe, I use energy and cleansing as well. And this is your main damaging weapon set. And the traits, we have Corruption, Invocation, and Vindicator. In Corruption, we're taking the resistance traits. So whenever you use a demon stance skill, which is the Malik stance, you're going to gain resistance. And whenever you swap legends, you will also gain resistance. So that's just really strong because resistance allows you to ignore being chilled, being crippled, being immobilized, having weakness on you, which weakness also reduces your endurance gain, which is going to prevent you from getting to your dodges. So the resistance just ignores all that, and it'll give you another source of healing. So you've got regeneration and you've got resistance that give you healing, which gives you a lot of sustain. Then obviously you've got Abyssal Chill, turns all of your chills into torment damage, which allows you to CC enemies and do damage to them at the same time. With a lot of your skills, that'll give chill. And then you have Invocation. I take the stability on stun breaking because the biggest counter to this build is to CC it. So I really like to go for the extra stability, but you can go for the cleansing channel if you really want more Condi cleanse, but we have plenty of it on this build already. So you can really forego that. And then you've got Incense Response, just more might, and Charged Mist, which will give you more energy whenever you swap legends underneath the 10 threshold. So you really want to deplete all of your energy before swapping to get that extra amount of energy. 75 energy is really good because there's a lot of skills that you can use in the Alliance stance because you've got 2 sets of skills. So having that extra energy gives you a lot more options. And then in Vindicator, we take the trait that gives you might and regeneration, and we'll also give it to allies nearby, so it's great in group play as well. And then of course The Song of Arboreum gives you more effectiveness on your vigor and will give you vigor on dodging, which is just going to give you more dodges. So it kind of feeds back into itself. And then, of course, the Grandmaster is Imperial Impact, gives chill, might, protection to your allies as well. It gives them protection and might and vigor. You'll also give them the vigor whenever you dodge. So you want to be dodging pretty much as often as possible just to keep your boons up. But you don't want to just waste your dodges, because if you dodge, then the enemy knows that you have no more dodges, because Vindicator has 1 dodge now, and it costs quite a bit, though you can get it back very easily using your F2 or by simply just getting all of that vigor uptime. Another thing is you want to use the Ghost Pepper Poppers, because these will give you a chance to gain might on crit during the day and chill during the night. And during the night, if you chill, that's torment, because chill gives torment. The skills you'll be taking are the Legendary Demon Stance and the Alliance Stance. And Alliance Stance can allow you to swap between the Luxon and the Kurzik versions. And remembering what each skill does is kind of hard, but you just got to remember a very specific range of the ability, and then you can more easily remember. So all of the heal skills are like an AoE around you. Luxon skills are always more aggressive, and the Kurzik skills are more defensive. So the Luxon heal is going to do damage and give you might, and the Kurzik heal is going to heal allies around you as well as yourself. Then you've got the first skill is like a leap. So in Luxon, that's going to do a leap finisher, and it's going to do a decent amount of damage and give might for the amount of enemies hit. Then in the Kurzik stance, it's going to be a dodge backwards, and it's going to give you resistance and regeneration. The resistance is really great because you have the resistance trait, and of course you're going to be increasing the duration of that resistance just by dodging, because that'll increase your boons. So yeah, resistance is going to come from Battle Dance. So what you want to do when kiting with this skill is you want to do the about face. I have a video on that. Just search for the intermediate mechanics guide and look at the camera settings guide. But yeah, you want to be using Battle Dance with about face, and then swap back to Luxon and use it forwards. So getting used to which direction you want to go and which stance you're in is really important. Next is a kind of like a ground target ability from range. You've got Scavenger Burst in Luxon, which will give you quickness and do a bit of damage and burning to the target. And then in the Kurzik stance, it will do the same kind of area of effect, but you want to be putting that on yourself and your allies, because it will cleanse up to 5 conditions and heal per condition cleanse. So that's where most of the Condi cleanse is going to come from, and that's really strong because it's a 3-second cooldown. So if you're fighting against a Condi class, you want to be sticking to the the Kurzik stance a lot of the time. And then the last one is your stun break. So all of these are 20 energy, but the stun breaks are 35 energy, and they have a longer cooldown of 10 seconds. The Kurzik stance gives protection for 6 seconds to you and nearby allies, and the Luxon one will give stability and will daze nearby enemies and do a bit of damage. So the elite skills are in Kurzik, it's Urn of St. Victor, which will prevent you from receiving any healing and do damage to you, but it will passively heal nearby allies, so it's really great in team play. And then when you've finalized the cast, it will heal nearby allies and yourself. So you generally don't want to use this when you're solo, only when you're in a team and when you yourself are not under any pressure. And then you've got in the Luxon stance, you've got the Spear of Archimorus, which will do a very long range spear attack, which is 2000 range. So if I use spear back here, you'll see it can actually land from all the way back there, and it'll do a decent amount of damage with the torment, because the hit can crit for maybe like 4k, but the torment on top of that, it adds up, and it's kind of like a free hit because you can cast it from way far back and sort of like precast it and finish off enemies who are running away as well. So Yeah, the spear, you don't want to be using that when you're like in melee. You want to be using other things, but if you're not in range of them, spear is really good. Then in the Malik stance, you have Empowering Misery, which just heals you more for however many conditions you have on you. Then there's Call to Anguish, which is another leap. So you've got leaps in all of your stances for mobility. So it's hard for you to get locked down unless they've got a lot of CC. And this will also pull enemies in towards the place that you leap to. And that's really good for not only giving out chill, but also kind of like landing all of your damage. So you want to do Call to Anguish into either your Mace 3 or your Greatsword 2 and 3. And then you've got Banish Enchantment, which, and this also chills, which gives Torment. Banish Enchantment will give a 3 stack of chill on the target, which means 3 torment, and will remove 3 boons. And it will also pierce and is unblockable. So this is really good in Zerg gameplay, or just like group gameplay, because it can remove boons on multiple targets. So if you're going against those really tanky minstrel blobs, just spam Banish Enchantment because it has no cooldown. And yeah, it can do a lot of disruption to the enemy because you remove their stability and then you can CC them with your Call to Anguish. They've been removed from their Zerg and then they're a free kill. Then you've got Pain Absorption, which is your stun break, and it will take conditions from nearby allies and put them on yourself, and then it will give you and them resistance, and it will also give you resolution, which will reduce the amount of damage you take from conditions. And that can be increased in duration as well because of your dodge. So yeah, you can see there's a lot of boons on this build, and just getting more and more uptime on them. You can decide what you're playing against and choose which boons you want to extend or gain to fight those. And then finally you have Embrace the Darkness, which will just pulse torment on nearby enemies, and it is a dark field. So if you use your world finisher here, the Greatsword 5, that's a leeching bolts, and if you do it in your Mace 3, then it's area blindness. And if you do it with a leap finisher, then you will gain Dark Aura, which will give torment to enemies that hit you and reduces incoming condition duration. That's pretty much all these stance skills. But also, one thing that you need to know is that when swapping legends, you will heal and gain regeneration. But swapping between Kurzik and Luxon also counts. There's no internal cooldown. So if I take damage, you'll just look at my regeneration uptime here. If I swap into the stance here, you'll see I get regeneration. If I press the F3 to swap it again, I get regeneration again. And then I can swap back into demon stance and you'll see my regeneration goes up again. So this extra 1000 healing, you can essentially get that every time you go into the alliance stance twice, because you'll swap in and then you'll swap between the stances. So every time you're swapping between your legends, you want to swap between Luxon and Kurzik as well for the extra healing. And if you just need to, just get cleanse, then what you can do is right before you're about to leave the Kurzik stance and go into Malik's, just, use the tree song and then go into Luxon and then go into Malik's. And then by the time your cooldown is back, you can go back into your alliance stance. And then you can also, because by then your cooldown on your F3 will be up, and then you swap back into the Kurzik stance. So you get that extra, basically you'd get an extra 2000 healing there if you do that order, rather than just camping the Luxon or the Kurzik stance. So those are pretty much all of the stance skills. Now the weapon skills, you've got your main damaging weapon is the Mace. The Mace 2 puts down a burning field. You can use the Mace 3, which is their nice torment and weakness in that for a little bit of might with the combo. You've also got Frigid Blitz, which is a heavy damage dealing ability. It's mostly power damage, but it'll chill and slow the target, which also gives torment. And that's nice for chasing targets because it's not only unblockable, but it's pretty long range. It's 900 range. And then you've got Temporal Rift, which is just a CC that you'll place on the ground and pull them in. So you've got a lot of CCs on this build for comboing and sticking to your targets. Also, the Greatsword, your auto attack, gives chill on the final attack and will give vulnerability. Nice cover condi there, but it's a mostly hybrid damage condition. Then the 2 skill will give more vulnerability and does a decent amount of power damage. And then the 3 skill, same thing, does decent amount of power damage, but it's a leap towards a target and will chill, which is always nice. So you've got constant chill on the target. Really hard for enemies to get away from you unless they have ports or a lot of condition cleanse. And then your 4 skill is a block. It's a pretty decent block because normally as Revenant you'd be using the staff, right? But staff doesn't really work too well with Celestial, so this kind of works out pretty decently because it does damage and a little bit of condition. And then you can use the counterattack for a little bit of damage depending on how much you block with it, but the damage is not very easy to land because the range on the ability is very short. And then Eternity's Requiem is not the best ability for a Condi build. It's more of a power build, but if you use it, it'll do a decent amount of damage for when you have Might on. I don't have any Might on right now. The role of this build is not quite the same as a Herald or a Renegade, because a Renegade is a little bit more selfish and a Herald is a little bit more bursty. The Vindicator is like a frontliner. You go in with your big leaps, with your Luxon stance, and you've got the stability and resistance to avoid being locked down. And then when there's situations where you can't go in, but your allies who have range damage can still pressure, you can support them with the Kurzik stance, giving them cleansing, giving them protection, giving them healing, and extending their other boons. So it's great for team roaming, not an amazing solo roamer, but it still has the survivability in those outnumbered situations because you have resistance, which prevents you from being locked down by immobilizes. Immobilize is like the strongest condition in World versus World because it sacrifices your positioning so hard. And because you have a lot of evades on top of your dodge, you can kind of shore up that weakness because you've only got 1 dodge, right? But Battle Dance is a dodge, and your F2 is also going to get you your dodge back faster. So generally when you're in the Kurzik stance, you always want to use Battle Dance to kind of get to that next dodge. And then when you're in Malix, you've got no other dodges, so you want to use your F2 in Malix usually. And of course, when you're going to be fighting thieves, because you're in World versus World, you're eventually going to fight a thief. So you've got perma resistance against thieves. So you don't have to worry about all those blinds that are going to be doing a lot of damage to heralds because they have to use an extra ability every time they get blinded, or they have to somehow cleanse it with a instant cast AoE, which is not really convenient. So the perma resistance is really nice. And of course you've got constant regeneration from regeneration and resistance. So you're really tanky. And even though thieves may have the say at the end of the day, whether they want to fight you or not, you're not going to be prey to them. So if you like this content, then like the video, subscribe for more, and I will see you all next time.